Good evening. Just to start going over the agenda items, Councilor Beard and myself, we were here for the meeting. Everybody else had conflicts last night for the work session, so no official business conducted, but we went ahead and discussed items on the agenda. And the first thing we got into discussion on was the one unfinished business item. Number one, whether that belongs under unfinished business or does it go under new business if it goes forward, because there's wording changed in it from the original proposal. And then the other thing was, are we trying to consider the email? I think everybody has a copy of their location. The company that made the initial inroads to doing the proposal actually says that we need to develop an internal scope and budget, initiate an RFP, and select best fit for the city. And it basically is indicating what we discussed the other night, that we do need to get some things done on our part before they can even react. So I don't know going forward if anything on this is premature or not. But that's for discussion. So please, go ahead.
When we had the last council meeting, I may have misinterpreted what we were doing with that particular agenda item, because I thought that we were postponing the item and that you all were going to allow the mayor to be able to negotiate to come back with a different scope of work. So that's why I moved it from new business to unfinished business, because when I put it in the minutes, I said that this resolution was postponed to the August 21st council meeting. Therefore, if that wasn't the intent of the council, then we just need to remove this one from the agenda. But then also I need to correct the minutes to reflect that this was not postponed to the next council meeting, but it was removed from the agenda at the last council meeting.
Recollection, Councilor Beard, you discussed it last
Sound
night.
like to me, yeah. It was removed.
Anyone else, comments?
I recall it being removed.
And with the change in the wording of the resolution on the agenda that we got, I feel it should be treated as a new resolution and given a new number.
Or should it even remain? That's the question.
Since you all are going to go through the RFP process or through the RFQ process, there's really no need of having this one on the agenda. The only reason I put it on there because I thought that it was unfinished business. But since you all have shared with me that it wasn't unfinished business, that it was supposed to be removed, then we do not have to deal with this particular item on the agenda for tonight. If that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, my big thing on it is we've got an agenda item that says authorizes the mayor to contract with Charles Women Associates to create a scope of work for renovating Ruffner Park for the amount of $15,000. Then we have an email from Charles Williams himself saying that it's in your best idea to develop a scope of work and then talk to me about it.
Well,
That's not what I'm reading.
Yes, I didn't talk to him,
Yeah.
Councilman Spivey. What I did was, because it was unfinished business, I just carried it forward.
Oh, no,
So-
you're cool. I'm just saying, like, that's my feedback on this resolution as it is right now, is it's basically saying, hey, we're gonna contract with this gentleman to do a scope of work, but then he's basically saying in this email, hey, it's in your best interest to go ahead and get a scope of work together, then talk to me about it. So that's why I say it doesn't need to be on here.
Right.
So we can resolve that when we approve the agenda. And are we in agreement that it's not being moved to new business? It's just, at this point, off the agenda?
That's what we discussed last time.
That's what I thought.
So when I recorded in the minutes for this council meeting, I'm going to say that this resolution was postponed indefinitely. Which that means that
I would say
it will not be brought up at another council meeting unless it's something new, but it will be removed and it will not be considered in this form at another council meeting.
So that'll be an amendment to the minutes also. All right, thank you. The first two under new business, number one is basically change the council meeting because of National Night Out. We're doing the usual and moving to that Thursday. Is that going to suit the majority of the councilors? That's something to consider?
This date right here, the chair listed.
Yes. Going from October 2nd to October 4th. And then the other one is because of the election, with the change from November the 6th to November the 8th. So those would be two changes. Those are actually the only changes between now and the end of the year.
I will not be here on October
Okay.
4th. I have a previous engagement at this point.
Anyone else? So we should be able to move forward. Okay. When we approve the agenda, could those potentially be on consent?
No.
No. Okay. The next one has to do with the funding of the landing. That has been discussed at several meetings. It's listed here. The in-kind services plus the gravel and other materials. The amount is $10,000. Mr. Stewart, I think your indication was funding, if approved, would come from where?
Capital improvement fund.
Okay. And under the guise of, you mentioned infrastructure, go ahead.
Yes, because these are items that we categorize anything that has a cost of $5,000 and a useful life of more than a year is considered to be a capital item. So that's why it would fall in line with coming out of that capital improvement fund.
And go
What's
ahead.
the,
Excuse me. Yeah. No, I think the mayor had something to go ahead.
Well, we just have a question about the, whether it's actually a capital expense, since it's not on city property. Can we capitalize something that's not ours?
I would say yes, because it has more to do with the amount of money that we are spending for the particular items. I guess I'm looking at it more as how you would account for it through governmental accounting more than whose property it belongs to. I mean, if you don't want it to be that, then it would just be an expense that will come from the park board.
I don't know that it's a capital improvement. I am also concerned about us not owning the property, but what the code kind of contemplates is more along the lines of building stocks, structures. It does say sites, sites.
That has to do with the Alabama Capital Improvement Fund that you're looking at.
Right.
So that deals with buildings.
Right.
I'm talking about the capital fund that the city has to purchase equipment.
Okay.
It's
You're
a
right.
totally separate deal. It has nothing to do with that particular fund.
Then I can't speak to that. I'm not aware of what the parameters are of what that particular fund is. You're right.
Yeah, parameters for that fund is if it's something that has a value of more than $5,000 and a useful life of more than a year, we can take that out of the capital fund.
Can you pull that for us in the interim, just so we have that?
I'll see if I can, next time.
I don't think this is something that's urgent, the financial situation that the city's in right now. I don't think we should be expending this amount of money on property that, as I said, doesn't belong to us and it's not an urgent need.
On the cap fund is totally separate from general budget. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so any issues or deficits, and I know this is, you're kind of in a house, if we were to think about it in a household, 2 accounts, there's one bottom line essentially, but we don't use the cap fund very often to offset a lot of the expenditures in our typical resolution. So I'm looking at it as far as 2 separate baskets. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so from a expenditure standpoint, I'm okay with it coming out of the cap fund because I know we're gonna talk about something else coming out of the cap fund in a moment too. As far as the timing, I do respectfully disagree with you. I know that there are some interested parties in the Cahaba with the Blue Way that are going to be doing some things very, very soon. Some very exciting things very, very soon. I think the parking lot plays a tremendous role in the revampment of that site as a whole. We've made improvements to that parking lot before, I believe. Frank?
I think we have
Okay.
during the canoe launch.
Okay.
We made improvements during that time.
Yeah.
We had a
We've made improvements down there before. I don't personally have a problem with the money as far as the improvements go, and I think timing is paramount, actually.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we look at the next one, which is the one on the funding, or the city accepting the proposal submitted for the festival. You should have gotten an update late this afternoon, which is different from what you had in the packet originally.
When you say late this afternoon, how
Yeah,
late?
when you say.
Well, good question. I checked my mail about 4 o'clock before I came here, and it was on my mail back.
That
We have not got it. I have not got it.
I haven't seen it, and my email's
Well-
been on all day.
I have copies.
We also know that we've had some problems. Bill has said that there have been some
Yeah,
emails
that's
that have been
true.
hung up,
True.
so we are probably
Ron, if you
missing
don't
some
mind,
things.
thank you. That may be something related to that, because we did get that. I'm assuming y'all got the email about some of our email not getting through the new filter, correct?
Yes.
City email, I've got one, John, thank you. Mr. Stewart could use one, I think, did you give Ms. Wilson one?
That's all right, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, I'll look on his.
Just so we know to check and make sure on emails, who was the email sent from?
Okay.
Is the only change or addition what you got yellow here?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, those copies are highlighted, okay. And if you look down that real quickly, the one thing that was a point of contention has been removed. We clarified last night that the 2 advertising trailers are the 2 utility trailers that are stored, we were told, up at the water tower, that historically have had signs put on the back and been parked at different locations. So they do belong to the city, but they're just utility trailers. The biggest question became the stationary trash receptacle at Public Works. That's not clearly defined. If it means there's a request for the city to rent a dumpster of some type, that needs to be more clarified. So that would be one thing to consider. And we were informed that basically we allow the use of the senior citizen van. That needs to be highly considered because we're allowing use of a piece of city property.
And insurance.
So now would be time to ask Leslie if you had any questions in particular, or the mayor, some of that.
Give it to Sean, he can explain.
Yeah, I would like clarification, so.
Sean, could you come forward? We are accepting responsibility for picking up the fallen trash, but we've got to have someplace to put it. That's my only concern. It could be thrown in the back end of a garbage truck or on a trailer or something in a truck parked out just outside the fence or something. I would just say, if we pick all this stuff up, I'm not gonna store it in my house.
Have you thought about getting a dumpster?
For why?
Just for trash? I'm just asking.
No, I have not considered that.
I don't, the city doesn't have a dumpster. I'll have to check with Frank if there's some other option.
We had a big truck that we used for recycling on the weekends. Is it still available?
Yeah, I'll have to check with them.
Okay.
That's
I
what I was
don't
wondering.
have a problem with that.
Pulling back a garbage truck?
I'll check with him, and I don't know what the issues might be with that.
We've had one in the past that was parked outside the fence.
Yeah, there was the dump truck. that was
Yes.
parked at the house.
Right. And that's what I was wanting to make sure it might be available for.
Yeah, I'll check on it.
All right.
Were there any other questions after you looked at the new proposal?
Yeah, the senior citizen, center van.
Yes, sir.
What about that, as far as the insurance, are they gonna be covered?
Yes, they will be covered. We have insurance through the Exchange Club. It will cover the event as well as cover beer sales.
I'm talking about the van, as far as the driver, if anything was to happen.
Yeah, that's why it's before you all, I mean, that's.
Well, I'm asking Leslie.
I have drafted a draft of a contract that has what I believe to be sufficient protection for the city as far as requirements for insurance and indemnification.
Okay.
So I'll have given you a copy of that,
Sure.
please, wait to see what happens here. But I believe that we can put it together in a way that protects everybody as long as there are limits.
I really don't believe
What we
that,
require.
excuse me, I didn't interrupt. I don't believe there'll be any issue with this because the Exchange Club has worked with events similar to this throughout the country. We aren't inventing the wheel right now, so, but,
Where do you anticipate having the van go from? What's your A to B?
depending on the number of folks we have, I'd like to run from downtown, from the parking lot at the Methodist Church down to here. That's about the only run that I was considering. Before we changed the venue of the situation, I was intending to go around to the other side of the tracks. But since since we've had to change that venue, we're not going to have anything coming on the other side of the tracks.
And you have a driver for the van?
Yes, well, I've talked to it.
I figured as much.
There's your driver.
He's a pretty nice guy.
Yeah, Cal's all right. Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, based on your questions and the fact that we don't have a contract, is there anything we can act on tonight?
We can act on it pending the approval of the contract.
Okay. And clarification of the dumpster issue?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Are you all gonna write the contract, or are you gonna accept this?
I have a contract that you'll be getting, you'll be receiving it.
Very fine.
Thank you. Okay, now the big one, and I would ask the chief, he's been working on this, he presented last night to a great extent, but I did clarify with the other chief that basically the upgrade of the radios for the police department would run a little bit more than y'all because of the fact they've got more stationary. So we would be looking at probably 200+ thousand for the upgrade. So you can use that as part of your presentation. Thank you.
What we have tonight as far as the radios is the county is requiring that countywide, with the people that are operating on the system like ours, we have to upgrade to a certain, it's called P25 operating software. We can do the upgrade. The quote I got back for the fire department and dispatch was right at $100,000. It's not including the police department, and there's just about equal radios there. That's just to upgrade. The issue with upgrading is our radios, we have radios that are almost 10 years old, and some are 10 years old. Since I've been here, we've had to send at least 4 to 5 to the shop to be repaired. Those radios are becoming obsolete. We're not going to be able to repair them. So when we have one break, we're going to have to replace them at the cost of these new radios, because this is what they're going to. Currently, Motorola, until the end of the month, is offering a 40% discount on the radios. Without the discount on this quote that you have before you, we're looking at over $500,000 to do what we would need to do. If we don't do this and we have radios start breaking, we're going to have to pay full price for those radios. After January, if there wasn't at least the upgrade, we were going to lose our service as far as, you know, if we have issues with the software, we're not going to do anything with the old software. So this is why I'm proposing that we purchase new radios. This is police, fire, and dispatch for this quote. Because, like I said, I don't want us to spend almost what it's going to cost us to get new radios, and then they start breaking, and then we're spending even more money without the 40% discount. I just think it's beneficial for us to do this so that we make sure that, you know, all of our trucks and everybody that's out responding to calls have a reliable source to communicate back to dispatch, communicate with each other. Yes, they seem like radios, but, you know, this is when we have guys in fires, this is how the people on the outside communicate with them. We've already had a firefighter that went down before I came here. That's how we're going to communicate if something happens. Same with a police officer. We don't want a police officer out and get into a bad situation and can't call for help. And I think that's where we're getting to these radios is, yes, we can upgrade them, but how reliable are they? When we look at funding for them or any kind of financing of them, that finance companies will only go 5 years on the loan just for the fact of that's the usable life of the radio, and we've doubled that on most of the radios. So I just don't want to see us upgrade and then we have upgraded unreliable radios. So I felt like this was the best time to do it with the discount. Don't know that it will be offered again. And I feel like if we can do it and save, we're saving over $200,000 by doing it now.
And is it fair to say the other side of the equation agrees?
Correct.
Thank you. And any questions on that? The other thing to clarify, we are replacing base stations in all cars, portables, the main receiving over here and dispatch, so it's a complete wipe clean of every piece of radio equipment in both departments and replacement. Now, I don't know about surplus, they probably have no surplus value, but I'm assuming there'll be something we'll have to do to surplus what's pulled out. Or are they taking them in trade?
There's no trade. Whenever we get the new ones in, of course, we can surplus them and attempt to sell them on like, I guess, gov deals like we used before and see what we could get for them to try to recoup some of the money.
And we have sold some of our old radios in the past. I don't think we got a whole lot of money. When we did serve, I think actually the city of Hoover a while back bought some of them, and somebody else might have bought some. So we have sold, not a great deal of money, but something.
What about some of the small,
Go ahead, please.
what about some of the smaller municipalities who may can use or purchase for a discount price some of this equipment that we're trying to upgrade, we're trying to replace? Have we
We
checked into
certainly
that?
can, but quite a few of the smaller ones have kind of piggybacked on the county system.
Okay.
This would do that, but I mean, yes, certainly. Like I said, we don't get a lot for them anyway.
Right, right, something for them.
That would be fine.
Okay. I got another question. As far as funding, I know you're asking for 300,000 replacement for this particular equipment. Now, I guess my question is, James, are we looking at 911 funds? Are we looking at capital improvement? Because based on what you're explaining to us, you know, this is to enhance the, you know, property's overall value or, you know, increase the use of life, you know, with this particular equipment. Where are we talking about funding? Because we only have 57,000.
Okay. Please explain what we can't use and what if we use will be causing ourselves a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover the policy again. The information that I gave you before I left out to go pull the policy, it had to do with the way that we account for capital equipment. So anything that's over $5,000 and have a useful life is 1 year, we actually account for that as capital. If it's less than $5,000, we actually account for it as an operating expense. We also have another place in that document that I gave to the city attorney where it says that a capital improvement project has to be over $15,000 for the amount, but has a useful life for 6 years. Therefore, the project that we're talking about doing at the Cahaba, it has a useful life more than a year, but the $10,000 does not meet the criteria for the $15,000 that says that a capital project has to be $15,000 as well as has a useful life for 6 years. So I stepped out at that time, so if you all agreed to, that we would pull that out of the capital, we'd have to find another funding mechanism for that. Now, the one, Councilman Wilson, that you're talking about, the capital improvement fund actually has $364,000 in that fund. If you all actually have the checking account balances that I sent to you the other day, there's $364,000 in there, and we have $205,000, or somewhere between $200,000 to $205,000 that will be coming back from ALDOT for reimbursement for the sidewalks.
However, clarify that. If we spend that money this year, what does that do to us next year?
Well,
You mean the 200,000 you're saying?
Right, yes.
Okay.
Well, if we spend, say, 321 out of the 365, that leaves us with 34, 44, and then we'll add $200,000 to that. So we'll only have maybe around $250,000 for FY 2019 to be able to spend on capital projects if we want to do the pay-as-you-go method.
So E911, we're not talking about those funds.
No.
We're not addressing those.
No, E911 funds are currently being used to fund the operations for E911.
Okay.
So E911 has about $350,000 in salaries and benefits. We have $23,000 that comes in every month, and we're currently using the revenue that comes in for E911 to be able to fund the operations for E911.
So that's not.
Does that help, gentlemen? Any additional questions? We're running out of time, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Question, so you're basically saying the 10 for Cahaba cannot come out of cap fund, if I heard this right?
Yes, because it doesn't fully meet the criteria for a CIP, but there was some money that was left over from the Mercedes project. You should have a line item there for 2014 bond proceeds.
39.5.
Yes.
And what does Park and Recs have left in it still? Do you recall? Is it about 4 or something? I was looking for it on here, but I wasn't seeing it.
There's not actually a checking account for
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So,
Do you recall what the amount was last time we spoke on it?
well, we had $40-some thousand for Ruffner. Is that the
No.
$42,000 you're talking about for Ruffner?
No, when we were
Are we talking
originally,
about?
when we were originally talking about the 15 for that work, where were we, that was gonna come out of Parks, right?
Spire.
That was,
That was a 42,000 that was earmarked for the parks, that was gonna come out of that.
okay,
For
gotcha.
parks.
We have a budget here for, see if I can find
Okay, gentlemen, any other questions? Might give you a couple of minutes to think about that one before the next meeting. Okay. And the last item on the agenda was just appointments. I think everybody's seen the names before. I'm assuming that will be a simple item tonight, just to add it, the last item. Not trying to cut you off on questions on that one, but we've only got a couple of minutes left, so.
Looks like, I'm looking at the, our budget, and it looks like we, as of the end of July, we're still $116,000 not spent, in the budget, is that correct?
That's what I'm seeing as well.
I mean, if you all want to move it around from a line item, you can. I mean, you can move a line item, but if you went through the, I sent you a copy of the budget as well, and we're currently $604,000 with expenditures over revenue. So I don't think that's a place that
I
we want
understand what you're
to
saying.
Now, let me,
add more expenses to.
now, that 604, that includes everything, bond payments, that includes everything that we're paying on a monthly, well, quarterly, or whatever. That entails that too, right?
That's all the expenses, or expenditures and all of the revenue through July 31st of 2018.
Any additional questions?
So we just looked at
We gotta figure out
the
what,
upgrade, yeah.
yeah.
I'm okay with the funding for the Cahaba. We can find the resources. I do understand that we need the upgrade for the fire and police because it's very important. That's not minimizing the need for those two departments, but we need to try to locate where we're getting that funding from. We do.
Capital improvements is not the only place we got to go.
Well, it's gonna leave us with,
Well, you're
not
gonna,
including 200 and
you're gonna put another $200,000
Well,
in.
gentlemen, I move that we adjourn this meeting and go into regular council session. Do I have a second?
second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we're ready to start off.